Hey everyone, welcome to Watch It, Paint It. In this episode of Ben Wobbles the Camera. In this episode of I'm opening my mail, I thought what's better than opening my mail? Making you guys watch me open my mail. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got this box and I should prelude. Is that the right word? Why not? I should start the video by explaining that this is the latest Kickstarter, or a bunch of products from the latest Kickstarter. I think there's actually tons and tons of stuff on this Kickstarter, but it's the latest Kickstarter from Game Envy, and this is a load of products from that. So bear in mind as I go through this video, I did get everything free here, and I'm quite good friends with Kit, who's the owner of Game Envy.
No, you're not.
So there might be a little bit of biasism. It might be a little bit weighted that I'm going to like these products a little bit more than I should, so I'm putting that out there straight away. But anyone who's backed his Kickstarters in the past will know these are great, innovative products, and you see me use them all day long when I'm painting on tutorials. Every day I use the hobby holder. Every day I should use my brush rests, but I don't. And the wet palette comes out when I need it. It's just not that hot in the UK, but the Exemplar is the one that I tend to fall back to. How many fingers was I fucking holding up? This is hard. And then I've lost track of how many fingers I was holding up in all of the cuts I've just done. But I also obviously use the wash wizards because I ain't getting Agrax Earthshade all over my desk again. So enough about the previous one. So let's have a look what we've got in the box. The first thing I notice is this massive plastic thing here. And this, guys, oh, look at this. This is innovative. You'll never have seen one of these before. But look, check this out. It's a cup. You've seen it here first. But it is a collapsible cup, so if you are traveling and you need a water pot, you can pop that in your bag. It takes up a little bit less space, quite a lot less space to be honest. And yeah, it pops out. That's what more is there to say? It's got quite a wide base.
Oh yeah, give it to me, hit me, spank me.
Pretty hard to actually knock over. Put enough force on it and it will fall. I think, frankly, I should just go and review this now because it's a cup. What more is there to say? So let's go and test this out. Yeah, it definitely holds water. Yes, my brush fits inside it. What more could you want? But joking aside, it does have a little bit of can you hear that? A little bit of texture to the bottom, which will help clean your brush, as well as these little notches on the edge, which helps you, what's that word, sculpt the tip of your brush instead of licking it. But I like licking my brush, you know. I've always been a fan of licking the tip, and I don't know if this will make me change, but I will go and actually use it in anger in a minute. The next item in the box is a little exfoliator. I think this is to keep your skin looking fresh and glowy when you're painting. You can just rub this all over. Pretty cool. It's quite soft, it's quite gentle, therapeutic. But this is actually I think they call it a Scrubby, which is designed to go in the bottom of your water pots like so, and it just gives you a little bit of something to tickle your brush and get the paint molecules off of it and just clean it that little bit faster. If you've watched the channel, if you've watched my favorite tools for some video like that, but I actually talk about a paint book, which is a similar idea, and it got to my #1 product. I actually hate painting without these now. I cannot be bothered to shake my brush in a pot for more than a couple of seconds, and these really make that happen. You know, 1-2 seconds quick and you're done. Your brush is like completely clean. I'll take this for a spin. It's a different one. It is a little bit loose in this part. That may or may not help. It might hinder the brushing, but I'll find out. We're going to test that out in anger, but it's nice to see a new version, a different sort of version. It's quite a lot of weight to this, so it's going to sink to the bottom of your cup. The paint puck, as the alternative, had a little suction cup, which can be a little bit fiddly. You know, mine tend to stick and never move out of place, so it'd be nice to see an alternative product though, because at the moment, it's not fun when there's only one. It's like a monopoly. So now they're pushing the boundaries. Let's find out about that. Also, I just mentioned these couple of pins. I actually saw he makes pins for his stuff. I don't know if that'll focus. That's probably a waste of everybody's time. But these are metal. They feel really nice actually. And I actually put pins on my bag, so I'll be sure to use some of those. Then the next thing are these little brush rests. As I just mentioned, I don't use my brush rest enough. I should use my brush rest enough, but these basically keep your brush off the table and lets them dry and just doesn't make a stain on any of your things. There's a bunch of different ways of putting your brush in these, and I'll show those, but essentially, yeah, it's just a little cheap product to keep your brush from getting rolled into things. Like, actually I do that a lot as well, and bending the tips and stuff like that. So we've got a couple of those in there. We've got this little Exemplar business card, which is, as I mentioned, I use their wet palette. This can be sort of, what do you call this, like squidgy things that you can just help flatten down the membrane that you put the paint on. It's just something like that. I think it's actually probably just some advertisement, but it is useful as a little squeegee thing to flatten that down. I don't know if they sell those, but I'm going to review it anyway. And then I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm opening these already. Then the last item is a little pack of brushes, actually. Meet your new favorite brushes. This is the Phalanx Squad brush collection. Guys, this sounds like an alternative to the Army Painter's most wanted brush sets. It looks like a small brush, a normal size brush, and a dry brush. So I'm a huge fan, especially if you follow the channel, you'll have seen this in the past. I think the most wanted brush set is where all beginners should begin. It's got basically the 3 levels of brushes you need, and it's not too expensive, so you're not going to ruin expensive brushes straight away, and they're good enough to get going. Hopefully, this might be a step up. I don't know the prices. That's something I'm going to have to go and look up, but this is now an alternative. You get a 00 brush, a size 2 brush, and a small dome dry brush. It's quite big. I find like everybody small is always a lot bigger than I potentially want.
I know, title of my sex tape.
So guys, that is everything in the box. We've got a cup, we've got a little scrubby, we've got some badges, we've got some brushes, we've got some, what the fuck are these called? Some brush rests, and then this, I think this was an advertisement. Anyway guys, that's enough. You've looked at it all. I'm going to actually use it and then give us a little bit of a review. I'll be back in a jiffy. Onto the review part of this video. Let me start this review with a little apology because quite frankly, I threw way too much shade at this water cup and it's actually really surprisingly good. Like, I can't believe I'm saying that. It's a water cup, guys, but it's just so much better than my normal cups. I normally use one of these for reference, just a cheap little pot. It's actually a non-spill one, but I can never be bothered to keep the lid on because I can't get my brush in very easily, which leads me on to the first thing that's great about this. It's really wide at the top. I can really easily get my brush in. I never thought that was a thing I was missing, but there's plenty of room to get in there, and it just works really well. So it's got this wide bottom base, which just makes it quite hard to knock over. I thought I would be catching it left, right, and center, but it just doesn't knock over at all. Next thing, I guess you've got adjustable heights. Now, I didn't use this, but if for some reason you've got a height issue and you collapse it down ever so slightly, I made that look harder than it is, then you've got a smaller one, and again, even harder to spill. You're really going to struggle at this point, and you can go one lower. You will be able to get water in here if you only want a splash of water, which might be useful if you've got your kids around and you're really worried about how much water they might spill. The next feature is this little built-in scrubby. Now, they do sell this additional scrubby, but this actually worked really well just with the base. I think I could get by just with this completely fine. So that, again, was surprising. Like, this is really good. That does help me clean my brush a little bit quicker. I will mention it's also collapsible. I do actually go out of the house and paint occasionally, and that's going to take a little bit less space, but I'm carrying quite a lot of paint anyway, so I wasn't too worried about that. But the other thing is just storage. I'm not always painting at my desk, and that just takes up less space. I can stand it, but don't do that. I could put it on a shelf vertically is what I was about to say. It was not going to balance vertically like that, but it's just really good, and I don't know what else to say about it. It's a water cup, but I want you to know that I shouldn't have taken the piss so much. It's really good. What other features does it have? Oh, I didn't notice this in the unboxing video, but it's actually got brush rests built in. You are able to balance it. It says 5, but I found, you can put 1 billion on it if you actually wanted. But back to it being so wide, it just gives you a lot of space to move them to one side and still be actually able to use that water pot. And then the last feature I should mention is these little notches here. I thought they were for sculpting your brush, but you're actually, if you've got a lot of water on your brush, you're able to drag it through and squeeze off some of the water on that brush. Guys, it's really good. It's $10. It might be a bit of a luxury expense on just a water pot, but guys, if you're even slightly interested, this has got my seal of approval. I'm well impressed with that. On to the next product, and that's this little scrubby. As I mentioned, I'm already a huge fan of the paint puck. It's my #1 tool. I can't be bothered to paint without them. It's just another version of that. It does exactly what I would expect. It cleans my brush that little bit faster. I will mention that worked pretty well. I put this in. It was negligible, the difference. I think this is gentler on your brush. It certainly feels gentler. That is hard plastic basically, and this is nice soft silicone. There's not a lot more to say about it. It cleans your brush that little bit faster. It did work well in here. I was a bit skeptical because it does wobble around, but it barely moves. It's got quite a bit of weight to it. Other thing to mention is I did say this was my previous cup. If you've got a cup like this, I know actually a lot of people paint with these. It fits absolutely perfectly on there, no movement whatsoever, and it just makes that cup look a little bit more high quality, a bit more premium. Just pat it out like so. But yeah, that's pretty nifty. Let me just check the price. So this is also $10. Just while I was reading about it, it doubles as a fidget. And I did notice that just reviewing it at this part, that I am messing around with it on my thumbs. It just feels nice. You could just sit and stroke it for the majority of the day. Yeah, it's quite sensual. It's pleasure to feel in your hand. But yeah, another. I also like this, but I already had a tool, honestly. So if you've got a paint puck, you may not need it. I think it's maybe an upgrade on that, but you know, if money's a thing, bear that in mind. But yeah, happy with these two. So the brush rests, these are new. Before I had hard plastic ones. These are all rubbery, super springy, a little bit nicer. Again, it's a bit sensual. You could play with these as well. But yeah, essentially it's just a very cheap product. I think these are $3 and it's just something to rest your brush on while you're painting. It just stops you staining things, as I've done with my desk pad next to me, unfortunately. But yeah, you can rest 5 of them on. I think there's different ways as well. I know you can put one that way if you want, and I think you can stick them in here as well if the brush isn't too heavy. That one actually knocked it over. And then I have to check on the side, but I think there's a few other things you can squeak out of using these for. But yeah, if you want a little rest, it also makes your desk look nicer. It looks a lot tidier on my desk with them sitting professionally. And I know when I was selling my house, I actually had my paints out and my brushes like that to, you know, that definitely helped sell my house, so bear that in mind. Then the final thing to do, and bear this in mind, that I've only painted 2 miniatures while I was trying out all of this stuff, but I think I can get a feel for these. But the actual brushes, I think you can really tell after painting more than 2 miniatures, although 2's better than 1. I'm going to give myself that sort of credit. Now, I would say I painted these just to the standard I would normally paint, just as well. No noticeable difference. Arcadia Quest CMON miniatures are quite difficult to paint sometimes, but I'm pretty darn pleased with these results. I used both speed paint and normal paint because I wanted to see how they worked with both acrylics and speed paint, and I can say they work both fine. I was surprised. I didn't think they'd hold speed paint particularly well. Let's start with the best brush, which is the Phalanx Select by Game Envy. This is a Kolinsky Sable brush, and yeah, it paints really well. I was kind of gobsmacked because I've checked the price range, guys, and it's $14. That's actually cheaper than the army painted set I would normally recommend, and frankly this was jaw-dropping how good this particular brush was. I think I could have actually painted up the entire miniature just using this one. It's got such a sharp tip on it. I was able to do absolutely everything. I just used the 00 to prove a point. Just wanted to see what it's like. It held speed paint particularly well. It held acrylic paint really well. It flowed really well off the brush. This is a really nice brush. Don't know if it's necessarily better than my Redgrass Games brushes, which I normally use, but bear in mind they're like $15 each, and this is $15 for all 3 of them. So yeah, big fan of this particular brush. I would be using that more as I go forward. Let's talk about the dry brush next. Yeah, again, this was good. Really soft dome dry brush. I dry brushed her hair and it worked exactly as I wanted. Some of the bristles came out. It stopped coming out as I moved on, so I think I just wore out some that were a bit loose to begin with. I'll just mention that for full transparency. But yeah, again, this was a nice dry brush. I did think it was going to be a bit too big, but this worked well. I didn't catch any of her body while I was doing it, so it's maybe not too big. But what can I say? It's like a makeup brush. It's that kind of feel. It worked well. I'm happy with that. And for the price, this is infinitely better than the one you would normally get with the Most Wanted set by the Army Painter, which is what I would normally recommend to at least beginners. So this is either A, past beginner level, like it's much nicer, but for the price, you know, it's a beginner level price, I would say. So very happy with that. Then the third and final is this Synth by Game Envy. It's the 00. So this is not Kolinsky Sable. It's a synthetic brush, which I didn't actually notice straight away. It holds the paint really well, and it comes out fantastically as well. The draw off of the bristles is really nice. It's a really nice fine nylon. But, you know, what would you expect? It's a synthetic brush. It worked really well. I did the eyes with these and it was like spot on getting where I was aiming. My aim's not that great, but it went where I wanted. Did her bracelets and things like that using this little brush. It worked perfectly well. This one did develop a slight flick on the tip of the brush, which you now can't see, so it's kind of come out. But I did notice it a couple of times as I went along. It's managed to pull back through, but that did concern me a little bit. I only painted 2 miniatures, and that's normally my experience experience with synthetic brushes that they only last a couple of miniatures. Mike swears by them. He never buys expensive brushes. He just buys lots of synthetic ones and plows through them and saves money, sort of never spending a lot of money on brushes, just buying a lot of them, so it probably works out the same. So overall though, this brush did work fantastically well. I'm just not convinced over the longevity of its lifespan. It may not last as long as I would normally like from a brush. I will carry on using that, so you see how I get on the channel. That's the best thing with the channel, guys. Just watch what brushes I use. If in a month's time I'm not using these brushes, then you can see that I've gone off them, I've moved back to something else. Let's see how I get on. I'll keep you posted. Any questions, by all means, ask later on in the comments in the video, and I'll get back to you with a more recent update to any of these items as I've used them more as time progresses. Guys, I think that's it. I will leave a link to the Kickstarter below, but hopefully I've just shown you everything. I've tried to be as transparent as I can be, bearing in mind I am fully aware I could be quite biased on this one. But there you go, guys. I'm impressed with all this. Game Envy keeps coming out with innovative stuff, and it's still all over my desk. It's still stuff I'm using 5 years on since I first got it. Thank you all ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.